As the one-year milestone of Hurricane Helene quickly approaches, some state representatives here in western North Carolina say the desperation for federal funding is just as evident as it was 6 months ago.
The statement was part of a news conference in Asheville today at Pack Square Park. News 13's Mark Liverman was there.
If President Trump is arguing that Governor Stein is not running our state's financial situation well, then President Trump doesn't understand how our state government works.
The contentious criticism continues, and so does the need as thousands of Western North Carolina residents still struggle. State Representative Lindsey Prather responding to a recent White House statement which says, in part, President Trump cares deeply about the people of North Carolina who were affected by Hurricane Helene, and Governor Stein's request is evidence that he is unfit to run a state.
Our governor has asked for a reimbursement of up to 44% of this storm, and so far we have received 6% from the federal government of what the total cost of the storm is.
Prather referring to the additional $11.5 billion that Governor Stein's requesting from the federal government in a supplemental disaster bill. At a news conference Wednesday, 3 local representatives argued that 6% is a far cry from the federal funds for other storms.
Hurricane Sandy, they got 78% of that storm's damage was funded by the federal government. Katrina, 73%, Matthew, 53%, and even Florence, which was not particularly well managed, was 20%.
So far, the state has allocated $2.9 billion to help North Carolinians recover from a $60 billion storm. Eric Ager says it's just not nearly enough. What's worse, how slowly it's all been given out.
There's lots of businesses that saw real damage, but there's also businesses that didn't have water for months. There's businesses that didn't have tourists in the busiest time of year here in Asheville, and those businesses still need our support.
But while the speed at which FEMA funds are fulfilled could always be faster, the Trump administration argues its cost share has lasted longer than any other storm in history. Adding, quote, the continued 90% federal cost share for debris removal and emergency protective measures, significantly above the standard 75% match provided in most disasters. But Prather argues the rhetoric just more of the same.
We're going into another tourist season, and so many of these businesses still aren't ready. And so the need is just as bad as it was 6 months ago.
In Asheville, Mark Liverman, News 13.
Tonight, we are getting reaction to a White House statement calling Governor Josh Stein unfit to run a state.
The statement also calls President Trump's response transformational for North Carolina.
A spokesperson for the governor's office sent this to us about an hour ago. It says in part that the governor is grateful for the federal government's support and the administration's responsiveness. But the size of Congress's appropriation to North Carolina to date is simply not enough to get the job done. And it's much less than what other states have received after similar catastrophic storms.
Kimberly King joins us now in the studio. And Kim, you spoke with Asheville Mayor Esther Manheimer, and she says the White House statement misses the point.
Tammy, Manheimer wants the public to know that Congress has approved billions for Western North Carolina. She says, though, that the problem lies with the Trump administration getting checks signed.
This week, Governor Stein asked the federal government for more Western Carolina help in the form of $11.5 billion in additional aid. In response, this statement from the White House saying Stein's request shows he's unfit to run the state, stating President Trump's transformational recovery involves one of the longest 100% cost share periods in FEMA history, and the continued 90% federal share for debris removal and emergency protective measures.
That's not the issue.
Asheville Mayor Manheimer says this.
Under this administration, there is a requirement that Secretary Noem approve all spending over $100,000.
Manheimer says that requirement is creating a huge log jam.
So if you're a city or a county or the state of North Carolina and you're doing repairs that are on the scale of millions of dollars, having to have every single check approved by Secretary Noem herself that's over $100,000 is creating this bottleneck.
I think it's important to keep in mind that this 100% cost share began under the previous administration, Joe Biden's administration, before Trump came into office.
Reporter Lucas Tamai with Carolina Public Press, a nonprofit, is talking about the Trump statement touting the 100% federal coverage. As for Trump calling Stein unfit to run the state,
it's hard to see it as anything but a political battle.
We have outstanding right now a check for almost $11 million sitting on Kristi Noem's desk that needs to be signed to pay for water filtration, emergency water filtration system that is at the North Fork Reservoir.
I emailed the White House asking for a response to Mayor Manheimer's statement. The communications liaison sent the same statement it sent yesterday, responding to Governor Stein, saying President Trump's recovery effort has been transformational. Tonight, Congressman Chuck Edwards responding, "This isn't a political issue to me. I'm working closely with both President Trump and Governor Stein to ensure Western North Carolinians get the help we need. I'll be meeting with Governor Stein again soon to discuss areas of priority within his request and ways we can accomplish them."
The communication contact for the White House directed me to contact the Department of Homeland Security for any information on Kristi Noem. Back to you.
And tonight we're following up on last night's report on delays in getting federal money following Helene.
Asheville Mayor Esther Manheimer told News 13 that millions of dollars in Helene recovery funds are waiting for approval from Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Now tonight we have team coverage of the federal funds for Helene recovery, starting with News 13's Kimberly King, who has an update from Madison County.
Madison County had to put up this temporary courthouse at the county fairgrounds because of Helene. And the county manager tells me a major bill is coming due to pay for it. He says this county needs their federal reimbursement funds.
Thursday, Asheville's mayor said this.
Under this administration, there is a requirement that Secretary Kristi Noem approve all spending over $100,000.
Today, Madison County's manager answered this.
Asheville Mayor Manheimer told us this week that it is Secretary Noem's office that has to approve each one of these that's over $100,000.
I'm pretty positive it is Secretary Noem's office.
Rod Honeycutt says this requirement is slowing the process and threatening small county finances.
$100,000 limitation per transaction at the national level is too restrictive.
Trump appointed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who came in February to see damage. But my email to her office last night asking for an interview or details on what's going on remains unanswered.
Here's what's happening so far with money in Madison County. Bridge loans, insurance, and FEMA reimbursements so far have totaled $6.2 million. The county so far has spent $4 million, leaving them around $2 million in reserves. But the bill to build this temporary courthouse totaling $2.8 million, the county manager says is coming due very soon. And he says it's putting a tremendous strain on local finances. He says there are virtually no reserves left with federal reimbursements, which may force the county to go into local taxpayer-funded reserves.
The county has paid $700,000 to replace an emergency communications tower similar to this. Honeycutt said it could be another month for state reimbursement using federal dollars.
We're hitting 12 weeks waiting on $700,000.
As you saw, we've emailed Secretary Noem's office now multiple times, as well as reaching out to representatives in U.S. Senator Thom Tillis and Congressman Chuck Edwards' office. We'll stay on the story and see if counties like Madison can get federal help faster. Reporting from Madison County and the temporary courthouse at the fairgrounds, Kimberly King, News 13.
And we just got a response from a FEMA spokesperson, not Noem's office, stating all project funding that was recently approved by FEMA has been obligated to the recipient, which is NC Emergency Management. The recipient is responsible for the drawdown of approved federal funding and dispersing that funding to sub-recipients. We refer questions on the location of funds to the governor's office. We will continue to follow this ongoing story. We continue to ask questions about Helene recovery and where the money is to assist with the relief efforts.
We have team coverage starting with News 13's Kimberly King, who has been looking into the role Michael Whatley has played after President Trump named him as Helene recovery czar for North Carolina.
Kim Whatley is now running for Thom Tillis' Senate seat.
Tammy, Whatley was Republican National Committee chair and a proven fundraiser for President Trump. But for months, local residents say they haven't seen him doing anything in his role with Helene to help in recovery.
This past year has been very difficult.
More than 20 people from around Black Mountain and Swannanoa came together.
Michael Whatley was put in charge of Helene recovery efforts for the federal government.
The president said Michael Whatley was going to make sure that all of us get the relief that we need.
We're going to assign Mr. Whatley, who's fantastic, frankly.
The president in Asheville in January.
If Michael Whatley does half as good a job for North Carolina as he did for my campaign, we'll be very happy.
The president was very clear when he came here in January that he is not going to forget Western North Carolina.
But this group says Whatley has. Local brewery owner John Garcia and Black Mountain attorney Anna Starnes have been involved in local recovery efforts.
If Whatley spent more time attending to this disaster relief effort in person, he might realize that our needs are urgent.
Swannanoa still without a post office. The group also addressing reports about Homeland Security Secretary Noem's enacted policy to review any grant or expenditure over $100,000 that started in June.
When the new rule was put in place by Secretary Noem, the way that state officials described that to me was inertia. Reimburse local governments for their work to process hazard mitigation buyout applications. All of that ground to a halt.
Local officials have also told News 13 that Noem's policy has significantly slowed FEMA funds. But Noem has pushed back on criticism, saying since President Trump took office on January 20th, FEMA's 126% faster on average in getting federal grant funding to states and communities that request it.
Every FEMA contract, every grant over $100,000 be personally approved by you.
Noem also going on TV disputing reports that her policy hurt in the Texas floods.
Did your policy delay some of the critical response resources on the ground in Texas?
You know, those claims are absolutely false.
Now, a Whatley spokesman sent us a statement which reads in part, "It's only because of President Trump and Michael Whatley that billions, including over $220 million direct for hurricane recovery, has been secured for the citizens of North Carolina, that Roy Cooper, the former governor, betrayed and failed." Roy Cooper, it's important to note, will be running against Whatley for that Senate seat. The statement sent to us did not answer any of my specific questions. Back to you, Holly.
Kim, thank you. Friday, the U.S. Department of Agriculture announced grants totaling $221 million are on the way for North Carolina's farmers and ranchers. This announcement came shortly after Governor Josh Stein asked the federal government for an additional $11.5 billion in supplemental disaster assistance. News 13's Justin Berger was there and asked Senator Ted Budd if more relief could be on the way.
Senator Budd, the governor recently asked for $11+ billion more dollars in federal relief. Is Congress eager to get more relief to North Carolina?
Well, the bulk of what we're seeing today was passed in December of 2024. So let's get that out the door. We'll always take a look at this. Remember, these aren't partisan. They're already being reimbursed at the state level from the federal level at about a 90% rate. And that's above the 75% rate that's standard. So it's over and above what's already being done. Let's just make sure that the money that's appropriated is getting to where it needs to go, and that's what's happening today.
News 13's Justin Berger is live in South Asheville with more tonight. Justin?
Yeah, Holly, this is just one of the questions we are trying to get answered. You heard Senator Budd say that most of that $221 million is from the American Relief Act, which was passed in December of 2024. It was a $110 billion relief package. Now, not all of that money was intended for just Helene, but North Carolina's share is approximately $5.95 billion. Grow and See, Governor Stein's Western North Carolina Recovery Office, published a report that as of June 30th, North Carolina has received $1.6 billion in federal funding, which means the state is still waiting on more than $4 billion of those dollars. The main question, whether we're on the street or inside of City Hall, is what is taking so long for relief to make its way west? Several local municipalities say the slowdown is coming on the federal side. A statement from a FEMA spokesperson Friday said questions about funding and where the money is should be directed to the governor's office. I've reached out to multiple scholars, the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office, and Grow and Seed to ask where the holdup is. We have not gotten an on-the-record response. Now, we will continue to work on getting an answer to the big question. Is it taking longer to get the financial aid necessary to recover from Helene than it has in previous natural disasters? Holly, back to you.
And we are asking you, do you think federal funds are taking too long to reach North Carolina following Helene? Pick up the phone and shoot the QR code there on the screen. It will take you to the station's online poll. You can also find it at WLOS.com.